It was supposed to be one of the happiest days of his life. Marcus Reed had waited for this moment for years. His son, Jamal, the first in their family to graduate from one of the most prestigious private high schools in the state, was about to walk across that stage. The journey to get there had been long, longer than most people in that polished auditorium could have imagined. But Marcus, he remembered every step of it. He remembered working double shifts in the Corps, being deployed, halfway across the world when Jamal was still learning to tie his shoes. He remembered those grainy video calls, the missed birthdays, the nights he'd sat awake in barracks wondering if his boy would remember the sound of his voice. And he remembered the promise he'd made to himself after his last tour. No matter what, he'd be there for this day. So when the letter came, announcing Jamal's graduation ceremony, Marcus circled the date in red on the kitchen calendar. Nothing was going to stop him. Not work, not weather, not even the ghosts of the past he tried so hard to leave behind. He'd even bought a new suit for the occasion, a sharp navy blue jacket, polished shoes. He wanted to do it right, wanted to show Jamal that this wasn't just another school event. This was history for their family. His boy had made it. The auditorium was packed. Polished parents in tailored suits and designer dresses filled the seats. You could feel the weight of old money in the air, the kind of place where legacies were born, where last names mattered. Marcus noticed the glances the second he walked in. He always did. Broad-shouldered, clean-shaven head, dark skin gleaming under the lights. He stood out, but he didn't care. He'd fought harder battles than a few sidelong stares. He found his seat near the middle row and sat down, programs folded neatly in his lap. His heart pounded with anticipation. Any minute now, Jamal's class would walk out, caps and gowns, flowing. That's when it happened. 2 security guards appeared out of nowhere, standing just to his left. One leaned down, voice low but firm. "Sir, we need to ask you to step outside." Marcus blinked, confused. "I'm here for my son's graduation." "We've received a complaint," the guard replied flatly. "We need to verify your credentials." Credentials? He'd shown his ticket at the door. Sat where he was told. What was this? He looked around. People were watching now. Whispers, curious eyes, some amused, others uncomfortable. Marcus took a breath, steady and slow. He'd faced far worse in combat zones. But this cut deeper. "I'm not leaving this seat," he said calmly. "My son is about to walk that stage, and I will be here when he does." The guards exchanged a glance. One of them reached for his radio. The tension in the room shifted. You could feel it. An unspoken charge in the air. Marcus's fists clenched around the folded program. He kept his voice even. "I'm a decorated Marine," he said. "I served this country for 20 years. I have every right to be here." More whispers now. More eyes. Jamal's classmates' parents watching like it was a spectacle. And that's when something unexpected happened. From the side of the room, 6 figures stood up in unison. 6 men. Broad, disciplined, their movements sharp even in civilian clothes. Marcus recognized them instantly. Former SEALs, brothers in arms from a unit he'd once served with. He hadn't even known they were here. But they were, and they were, moving toward him. The guards paused, clearly unsure. One of the SEALs, a tall man with a thick beard and steady gaze, spoke first. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was calm, but carried a weight that made the nearest rows go silent. The guards hesitated. We were asked to check credentials." The SEAL looked at Marcus, then back at them. "This man doesn't need credentials. He's earned the right to sit here more times than you can count." Another SEAL stepped closer. "If he's going, we're all going, but not quietly." Now the room was dead silent, the entire auditorium watching. Marcus sat still, heart pounding, not from fear, but from something deeper. Brotherhood, loyalty, the knowledge that even now, after all the years and distance, they had his back. The guards shifted, radio still, in hand but suddenly unsure. The weight of 6 trained operators standing in quiet solidarity was not something you challenged lightly. Finally, after a tense beat, they backed off. "Enjoy the ceremony," one muttered before they both disappeared. Down the aisle, Marcus exhaled slowly, the grip on his program loosening. He glanced back at the SEALs. One of them gave a small nod, barely noticeable. A signal. "We've got you." Moments later, the lights dimmed. The music began. The graduates started filing in, caps swaying, tassels glinting under the lights. And there was Jamal, tall, proud, scanning the crowd until his eyes landed on his father. Marcus smiled. He didn't have to say a word. Jamal knew. He'd kept his promise, and the room would remember this day, for reasons none of them had expected. Marcus sat in that seat, his heart still racing, though on the surface he looked composed. He'd learned long ago how to wear calm like armor. The auditorium lights dimmed a little more as the principal stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, and began the ceremony with the usual words of welcome. But Marcus wasn't hearing much of it. His focus was on one thing: Jamal. In that sea of students filing in, wearing navy blue gowns and crisp white stoles, Jamal stood out to him like a beacon. Tall, shoulders squared, chin lifted. His boy. His son. The kid who used to wait by the window when Marcus came home from deployment. The one who'd cried on those first calls when his dad was stationed overseas. And now, here he was, a young man walking toward a future Marcus had once worried might not even be possible. As Jamal took his seat with the graduates, his gaze swept the audience. It took only a moment for their eyes to meet. No smile, just a steady look. A son, checking, to see if his father was still there. Marcus gave the smallest of nods. He was there. He would always be there. But beneath the calm exterior, Marcus's mind was still turning. The incident with the guards wasn't sitting right. Someone had made that complaint. It hadn't been random. No one checks credentials on a decorated Marine sitting quietly in a suit unless someone behind the scenes asked them to. And Marcus had a strong suspicion who it might have been. He glanced 2 rows ahead, where the board members and top donors sat. Among them was Charles Whitmore III, a name that held weight in this community. His son was in Jamal's class, and Marcus had overheard more than once the whispers about the new scholarship kids. Jamal had earned every inch of his place here, full academic ride. But not everyone liked it when old traditions were challenged. And Charles? He'd made that very clear the day of the parent mixer last fall. Marcus remembered the way the man had shaken his hand, too firm, eyes cold, and the patronizing way he'd asked, "So, which branch were you in again?" Like Marcus hadn't bled for this country while men like him signed checks. Now, Marcus wondered if Charles had tried to turn today into a power play. He wasn't about to let that happen. Not today. The ceremony moved on. Names were called. Students crossed the stage. Polite applause filled the room in measured waves. Marcus clapped for each one, though his hands stayed tight, muscles tense. Every minute that passed felt like a countdown to Jamal's moment. Then, about halfway through the list, the principal's voice rang out clearer than before. "Jamal Reed." Marcus rose slightly in his seat without thinking. His heart surged. With pride as Jamal stepped onto the stage, every step measured and sure. There was a flicker of nervousness in his boy's eyes, but the second he looked out and saw his father standing there, the tension broke. He smiled. Wide. Real. The applause swelled louder than for many before him. Whether out of respect or the silent witness of what had almost happened earlier, Marcus couldn't tell. But it filled the room. Jamal accepted his diploma, shook hands with the principal, and paused at center stage. Not for the cameras, for his father. Marcus stood tall, his chest aching with pride. He saluted, a crisp, precise gesture that said everything words couldn't. And Jamal, with a grin that lit up the auditorium, saluted back. It was a small moment, but it was the moment. As Jamal returned to his seat, Marcus noticed movement again near the side of the room. The two guards from earlier were back, this time speaking in hushed tones with a sharply dressed man, one of the event coordinators, possibly another donor or board member. Their eyes flicked toward Marcus. Then toward the SEALs who had remained seated in different parts of the room, alert but still, watching. Marcus's instincts, honed over decades of service, picked up on it instantly. The threat wasn't over yet. Something else was brewing. Maybe an attempt to confront him after the ceremony. Maybe something more subtle. A way to tarnish the day, undermine his presence here. He leaned back slightly, caught the eye of the tall SEAL, the one who'd spoken earlier, and gave a small tilt of his head. The message was clear. Stay sharp when. The ceremony finally concluded, the graduates filed out in triumph. Families surged forward, cameras flashing, hugs and laughter filling the space. Marcus waited a beat, letting the initial crowd thin, before making his way toward the exit where the graduates would meet their families. Jamal spotted him first, weaving through the crowd with his diploma clutched in one hand, cap slightly askew. "Dad," he called out. Marcus caught him in a firm embrace, lifting his son slightly off the ground. "I'm so proud of you, son. You have no idea." Jamal pulled back, eyes shining. "I saw what happened. I heard some kids talking." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Don't worry about it. Today is your day." But Jamal shook his head, voice steady. "No, it's our day." Before Marcus could respond, movement at the edge of the crowd caught his attention. The guards again. And this time, Charles Whitmore was with them. Lips pressed thin, eyes hard. He was walking straight toward them, and Marcus knew in that instant the fight wasn't over yet. Marcus instinctively shifted his body, placing himself slightly in front of Jamal as Charles Whitmore approached with the two guards trailing behind. The casual smiles and congratulations buzzing around the auditorium entrance faded into the background, drowned out by the cold focus in Charles's eyes. His polished shoes clicked sharply against the tile, his tailored suit immaculate. A man used to getting his way. A man who didn't like to be defied. The moment he stopped a few feet from them, Marcus straightened to full height, shoulders squared, gaze unwavering. "Mr. Reed," Charles began, voice clipped. "Quite the spectacle earlier," Marcus said. "Nothing at first." His silence was deliberate, controlled. A tactic learned long ago. Sometimes the most powerful statement is to let the other man fill the air with his own arrogance. Charles continued. "You must understand, we have certain expectations here, certain standards. The atmosphere of this institution, well, I'm sure you can appreciate that it's built on tradition." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Tradition," he said, voice low. "You mean the kind where a Marine isn't allowed to sit and watch his son graduate?" Charles's smile was thin, practiced. "No one questioned your service, Mr. Reed. The issue was ensuring an orderly event. We had complaints about a presence some found disruptive." Behind him, one of the guards shifted uncomfortably, clearly aware now of how precarious this conversation had become. Jamal stood close, eyes darting between them. He didn't fully understand the undercurrents, but he knew enough to see the tension. He tugged at Marcus's sleeve. "Dad, it's okay. Let's just go." But Marcus didn't move. He kept his gaze locked on Charles. "My son earned his place here," he said, voice steady as steel. "I've earned mine, and I don't need your permission to stand by him." There was a pause, just long enough for several nearby parents to glance over, sensing the heat rising in the conversation. Murmured voices, cameras still flashing a few feet away. Charles's face twitched, the polished veneer cracking just slightly. "You should know. Not everyone was pleased with how today unfolded. Certain benefactors are questioning the influence of some of the new scholarships." And there it was. The mask slipping. The message beneath the message. Marcus felt his fists clench at his sides, but he didn't give Charles the satisfaction of a visible reaction. Instead, he took a slow breath and leaned forward, just enough for his words to land with weight. "You may have your circles and your money," Marcus said, "but let me tell you something. Respect isn't bought, it's earned. And if you think intimidating me or my son will erase what he accomplished today, you're mistaken." At that moment, a voice cut in from the side. "Is there a problem?" "Here?" It was one of the SEALs, Jake, the tall one with the beard, moving through the crowd with two of the others close behind. Their presence was casual but deliberate, eyes sharp, reading the room. They didn't have to raise their voices. Their reputation spoke for them. Charles's face darkened, but he forced another smile. No problem at all. Just a civil conversation. Jake's gaze flicked between Charles and Marcus, then settled on the guards. Good. Would be a shame to ruin a young man's graduation with anything else. The message was clear. Charles hesitated, then smoothed his suit jacket. "Congratulations to your son," he said, his voice now lacking its earlier edge. With a curt nod, he turned and walked away, the guards following close behind. The tension lingered in the air even after he was gone, like the aftershock of a passing storm. Jamal looked up at his father, uncertain. "Dad, why do they care so much?" he asked quietly. Marcus sighed, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. "Some people see the world in boxes, son, and when you step outside the one they put you in, it scares them." Jamal frowned. "But I don't want to be in a box." Marcus smiled then, soft, proud. "You won't be. Not now, not ever." The Akuti SEALs approached, casual but warm. Jake clapped Marcus on the back. "We've got eyes on him," he said, nodding toward where Charles had disappeared. "If there's more trouble, you won't be facing it alone." "Appreciate it," Marcus said sincerely. "Didn't think I'd need backup at a high school graduation." Jake chuckled. "You'd be surprised. Some battles aren't fought overseas." As the crowd began to thin, Marcus and Jamal made their way outside into the bright afternoon sun. The tension of the auditorium melted away with every step. Jamal grinned, holding up his diploma. "You know," he said, "I think this day was even bigger than I thought." Marcus looked down at him, eyes full of pride. "Yeah, son, it was." But even as they stood in the sunlight, Marcus knew deep down this wasn't over yet. People like Charles didn't like to lose, and something in that man's parting words told him the fight might just be shifting to another battlefield. For now, though, Marcus allowed himself a moment of peace. His son had graduated. They had stood tall, and the bond between them, between father and son, was stronger than ever. But the next chapter, that was still being written. The following week should have been one of celebration. Marcus had imagined it. He and Jamal grilling in the backyard, laughing about old stories, the weight of the past few years finally lifting. But instead, something else began to creep into their days. Something subtle at first, almost easy to dismiss, until it wasn't. It started with the emails. At first, Marcus thought they were routine. A notice about Jamal's records. A message from the alumni office asking for updated contact info. But then came one marked urgent, a coldly worded message informing Marcus that a review of Jamal's scholarship was underway due to recent concerns regarding parental conduct during the graduation ceremony. Marcus sat at his kitchen table reading it over and over, the words growing heavier each time. It wasn't about a scholarship review, it was about retaliation. He didn't tell Jamal that night. The boy had been riding a well-earned high, full of plans for college in the fall. Marcus didn't want to dim that light, but deep down he knew where this was coming from. Charles. The man had lost face in front of a room full of witnesses, and men like that didn't let go of grudges. They found ways to strike back from the shadows. By the weekend, more signs appeared. A neighbor Marcus barely knew stopped him during a morning jog. "Heard there was some kind of incident at the school last week," the man said, voice dripping, with false concern. "Hope it doesn't affect your son's future." Marcus kept running, his pulse pounding faster than the pace of his feet. He knew how these things worked. Whispers, carefully planted rumors. An old game, one he'd fought before. But this time, it wasn't about his reputation. It was about Jamal's future. When Monday came, Marcus drove straight to the school's administrative office. He didn't bother with an appointment. He walked in, back straight, head high. The receptionist gave him a tight smile but faltered under his steady gaze. Within minutes, the head of student affairs, a thin, silver-haired man named Dr. Langley, appeared. "Mr. Reed," he said, voice smooth as glass. "How can I help you?" Marcus held up the printed email. "You can start by explaining this." Langley gestured toward a side office. "Let's speak privately." Inside, the door closed softly behind them. Langley folded his hands on the desk. "I understand your concern. The review is merely procedural." "Don't insult my intelligence," Marcus said evenly. "This isn't about procedure. It's about someone pulling strings." Langley's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in his eyes. "As you're aware, this is an elite institution. We rely on the support of many invested parties." Marcus leaned forward, voice dropping to a quiet force. "And I've invested plenty. Blood, sweat, years of service to a country that supposedly stands for justice. My son earned every bit of his place here. If you, or your invested parties, think I'll sit back and watch him be torn down because I dared stand my ground, you are sorely mistaken." For the first time, Langley's mask slipped. His fingers tapped nervously on the desk. "I'll look into the matter personally." Marcus stood, towering over the man. "See that you do." That evening, Marcus finally sat down with Jamal. The boy listened in silence as his father explained what was happening. When Marcus finished, Jamal's expression was hard to read, equal parts anger and disappointment. "Why do they hate us so much?" he asked quietly. Marcus reached across the table, resting a firm hand on his son's shoulder. "It's not hate, son. It's fear. You didn't fit the box they built. You broke their mold. That scares them." "But what do we do?" Marcus smiled, though there was steel in it. "We stand taller." Later that night, as Marcus paced the living room trying to decide his next move, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Jake, the SEAL who'd stood by him during the ceremony. "Heard what's going on. Got a contact. Former alum, powerful voice. You're not fighting this alone." Marcus stared at the message for a moment, hope flickering. Maybe there was a way through this after all. The next morning, Jake introduced Marcus to a woman named Alicia Grant, an alumna who now ran a successful law firm and had long been an advocate for equality in education. Within minutes of hearing Marcus's story, she was fired up. "I've seen this game before," she said, "but they don't expect resistance. Let's give them some." Together, they drafted a formal letter of complaint to the board, citing discrimination, intimidation, and unlawful targeting of a student based on parental status. Alicia also reached out to her contacts in the press, quietly, strategically. Within days, whispers of what had happened at the graduation began to circulate beyond the school walls. Suddenly, the school wasn't so sure of its footing. By the following week, the scholarship review was mysteriously dropped. An official email arrived in Marcus's inbox full of polite, hollow language about misunderstandings and internal resolutions. But Marcus knew better. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a warning, one that had backfired. As the storm settled, Jamal came to his father one evening, holding a folded piece of paper. "It's an essay prompt," he said. "For my college apps, describe a time when you overcame adversity." He looked up at Marcus, eyes shining with quiet determination. "I think I know what I'm going to write about." Marcus felt a deep swell of pride. He pulled his son close. "And whatever you write, son, you tell them the truth, that you stood your ground. And you didn't do it alone." But deep down, Marcus also knew something else. This was just the beginning. There were bigger battles ahead. College, life, the world beyond their small circle. But for now, father and son stood tall together, and the world would remember. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Jamal's first college acceptance letter arrived. Marcus found him standing in the doorway, envelope in hand, fingers trembling slightly. They'd been waiting for this moment, holding their breath through months of uncertainty, wondering if the shadows of the past few weeks would cast too long a mark. Jamal handed him the envelope. "It's from Howard," he said quietly. Marcus gave a small nod. "Open it." For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Jamal drew a breath, tore the seal, and unfolded the letter. His eyes scanned the words once, then again. A grin spread across his face, slow but unstoppable. "I got in," he whispered. "Full scholarship." Marcus pulled him into a fierce embrace, the kind that says more than words ever could. All the fights, the long nights, the whispered doubts, they melted away in that single moment. His son had done it. They had done it. Later that night, they sat on the back porch, a quiet peace settling between them. Jamal looked out over the yard, the letter folded neatly in his lap. "I've been thinking a lot," he said finally, "about that day, about everything that happened." Marcus glanced over. "What about it?" "At first, I was embarrassed, angry. I kept wondering why it had to happen in front of everyone, why they tried to humiliate you." He paused, voice steady now. "But now, I think it showed me something. You didn't flinch, you didn't back down, and neither did your friends. You taught me that when you know your worth, no one can take it from you." Marcus felt a lump rise in his throat, but he kept his voice even. "That's exactly right, son." Jamal looked over at him, eyes clear. "I'm going to carry that with me, no matter where I go." In that moment, Marcus saw not the boy who used to wait by the window, but a young man ready to face the world on his own terms. And beneath the pride was something deeper, a quiet relief. He knew now that whatever challenges lay ahead, Jamal would stand tall. Before they turned in for the night, Jamal pulled something from his pocket, a small, worn program from graduation, edges curled. On the back, he'd scribbled a quote. "Some battles aren't fought overseas. They're fought right here. And sometimes, the ones we fight for are standing right beside us." He handed it to Marcus. "I wrote it after everything happened. For you." Marcus swallowed hard, taking the slip of paper. "Thank you, son." As they stood, Marcus placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder, grounding them both in that moment. "You're going to go far," he said softly. "And no matter what anyone says, you remember, your worth isn't defined by where you come from, or who tries to tear you down. It's defined by how you stand, and how you carry others with you." Jamal nodded, a quiet smile playing at his lips. "I learned that from the best." As they turned toward the house, the porch light casting long shadows behind them, Marcus felt a deep, steady pride. The kind no title, no uniform, no institution could ever match. Because in the end, this wasn't just about a graduation, or a fight in a polished room. It was about a father and son who stood their ground, together, and the world had seen it.